How you doing? This is a little video. It's going to be in 3 parts. I just want to do a quick video. Well, it's not going to be too quick really, but so just bear with me. It might be one of them you want to come back to every now and then, and just sort of replay it or take segments out of it. I'll try and put the timestamps in so that you can have a good idea of what section is for which part. But I want to look at numbers and the number system, in particular, sort of maybe in a little bit more practical sense. So this first video will focus on an introduction to what numbers actually are, where we get them from, how you actually work them out. And then part 2 is actually then going to be an introduction of how you can use those to develop your worship, whether you're worship leading, whether you're part of a band. It applies to guitar, it applies to keys, you can apply it to bass. It's the same for any of those instruments really. So it will give you an idea of how to sort of develop in that area and expand a little bit, and maybe go away, if you want to, an opportunity for you to go away from being as scripted as we might normally be in worship. And what I mean by that is being totally reliant upon the sheets in front of us. You know, I find at times if I'm constantly looking at the sheet, whether that's for lyrics, for chords, for anything, it's easy to get distracted. And I think we'll all agree that we would like to get completely lost in our worship and in that moment. So this is a way and some quick tools to develop that skill set, and it's quite liberating really. I was brought up in a Black Pentecostal church, and this is a system that they used. I've only been playing an instrument for what, maybe 14-15 years, so not from young, but been singing within worship teams, and I had an idea of how this thing worked. So then when I started to play an instrument, it's been a transition that it's not been natural. I've had to work at it and get an understanding, but a bit of theory and it will go a long way. So let's get started. G. This applies to every key, by the way, and we'll look at that in the 3rd video, a bit of practical application. So I'm going to use the key of G to sort of start us off. It's guitarist's favourite key, sometimes. Okay, so what we have in here is we have a scale, what we call the major scale. You may have heard that. You may have been brought up in school and learnt the do, re, mi. And you're back to G again. And that's what we call an octave. And there's 7 notes. There's your 7, and then you're back to 8, which takes us right back to the root. We call the root the 1 chord. So in this case, we'll be in G. So the chords that we have available to us here, we have a G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and G. They all have a corresponding chord, which we call a number. So G being the 1, if we walk up the scale, A minus 2, B minus 3, 4 is the C, 5 is the D, 6 is the E minor, and 7 is the F sharp. Now, in contemporary Christian music and in a lot of popular music, they actually play the 5 chord, which is a D, just with the 7 bass, because technically that should be a diminished before we go into the G, but not many songs use that. It's used a lot in jazz and other genres, but not generally in popular music or in CCM. So they're the chords that you may be familiar with if you play the guitar or the piano, but you've never really translated that into a corresponding number. So 1 G, 2 A minor, 3 B minor, 4 C, 5 D, 6 E minor, and 7 the F sharp or D F sharp. We're back to G again. So here's the thing, because of the scale, Now a scale is worked up on what we call intervals. So an interval is a step or the distance between each note. So the major scale is made up of what we call, here's my root, you go a whole step. So on a guitar, that's a semitone and that's a tone. 1 fret up is a semitone, 2 frets up is a tone. So the scale goes, you start on the 1, it goes a whole step again, half a step or a semitone, whole step, whole step, whole step, and half a step, and you're back to your root note again. And that's simply how you work out what each note is. Simple way around this, because you might think, hold on, there's 7 notes I've got to remember. One of the ways to break this down, and this applies for every major key, is the 1, which in this case is the G, the 4, which in this case is a C, and the 5 are always major chords. That's something, if you want to make a note, just get that logged in your head. The 1, the 4 and the 5 are always major, regardless of what key that you're in. Okay, there are variations to that, but in the theory of the scale, that's what they are. So then we need to remember the other chords. So then the 2, the 3 and the 6, they're always minor chords. So 1, 4, 5 major, 2, 3, 6, they're always a minor chord. So that's a very simple way to maybe compartmentalize that in your mind, to think, okay, if I am in a key and someone shouts the 4 out, it's got to be a major chord, and then you've only kind of got to remember 3 chords really, and you just start to build upon that knowledge, and it allows you to make a quick reference. I think that's the beauty of it. So that's what we have here, and that's it in general. Like I said, you can apply that to any key that you are in, and it will it's just the same thing. So the application of this really is to try and learn your major scale. Even if you're not quite sure about your notes as yet, well, okay, you can hear that, right? If I did something different, okay, it's not right. So this is really, really good for your ear training. So when you're listening to songs, a lot of the CCM songs follow a traditional pattern. We'll talk about that in the next video, because if you are wanting to develop and get away from being totally reliant on the sheets that are in front of you, you can actually see a pattern in the verse and the chorus. They usually just repeat the same chords, oftentimes just a slight variation. So that's one way to say, well, actually the verse is exactly the same, so I can just play that all the way through, and the chorus just changes the C or the D, or introduces an E minor, etc. Obviously I'm relating to if we're in the key of G. This works the same if you use a capo. Okay, so this is how you work out for guitarists what fret to put your capo on. So if someone is saying to you, actually, we're playing in the key of D, and you don't quite know the chords, the rest of the chords in the key of D yet. You may know C and the chords within the scale of C, and also C, very common. So what you would do, as we know, 2, 3, 4, 5, the D is the 5th degree of in the key of G. So all you would do, you can carry on playing using the G shape and put your capo on the 5th fret, and then you could just play your G shape, and all you'd have to do then is what we call transpose, and that is understand which chords are compatible in terms of using that number system. So if they were playing a D in the key of D, that would be their 1 chord, and you, with your capo on the 5th fret, you'd be playing the G, which would be your 1 chord, and so on. Or you could get the sheet music in G, but just put your capo on fret 5 if they were playing in D, and just play the exact same chords that are on the sheet, and it would work exactly the same as well. So that's a useful thing that's worth saying on this is, especially for guitarists, I don't know you know how long you've been playing as you're watching this, but one of the things that I was kind of overwhelmed with is, how am I going to remember all of these notes? So no matter where I go, I'm like, what note is that, you know, all across the neck? By understanding this simple major scale and understanding the numbers, what you then do is open up the fretboard completely. And again, I'm sure this will work in a roundabout way on keys and definitely on bass because of the layout. Keys slightly different because it's in front of you. So here's the beauty of it. Let's go back to G again. So every time I know there's a G note there, I know directly underneath it is the 4, and that's a C. And then that's a D, just two frets up, or one full step. So that's a G, that's a C, that's a D. And then it works again. So here we go. Here's my other G. I know directly underneath that there must be a C. So it works exactly the same. And then 2 frets up, we have a D again. So now you get to sort of picture the fretboard in its entirety. Rather than thinking about individual notes, you've always got a reference point. So I can find all my G's all across the neck. And then where I find a G, there's got to be a C or a D, and vice versa. And also that applies for every single thing. Wherever there's a G, I know just 2 steps up, there's got to be an A. It's exactly the same all across the neck. And you can work back down. Wherever there's an A, there's got to be a G, just 2 frets down. So this is great for improvisation. You know, as you maybe playing lead, this is great to understand. Or if you're just noodling about, it's really good. You know, just type in YouTube backing track for guitar or piano, whatever it is that you want, and just actually practice. Just going through your scale. And just start to sort of make music with that and get a feel for how the different notes sound. Hopefully that's a useful insight. Like I said, in the next video we will look at how you can actually apply that into the flow of worship. So that is being able to maybe instruct your band, looking at the spontaneous. That is also just maybe a development tool for your worship team or you as an individual. You know, just setting yourself little goals. How can I actually, again, get away from being so reliant on the sheets that are in front of me? I meet a lot of competent people, and oftentimes it's not the lack of skill or capability, but it's simply just the know-how of how to sort of move to that next phase and that next step, really. So have a go at that. Like I said, that's the key of G. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and you're back. And then we will try and put that into some sort of practice in the next video, and then the last video there will be some tools and tips of how you can develop that. Any questions, please, you know, fire them in the comment boxes. Let me know if it's been useful, too fast, too slow. One of the things that it's much easier to explain this in person, in practical, without a doubt, but it's something that I know if you take the time to learn, it will be really, really beneficial for your individual and group development. Okay, God bless you.